West of What is a roundtable conversation inspired by Mother Earth's call for more landwork ceremonies to happen. This is a podcast where spirituality lands into politics, history, culture, and more, because land is where we all meet. We want to know how we can come into greater connection with the land and each other, and how we can all move forward with integrity. We believe the answers and solutions will come from many voices, from the truths that happen inside of our togetherness. Hello and welcome to West of What. Today I am brimming with excitement because our very important guest on today's show is Gareth Hughes, who holds the medicine wheel and is one of the most I think he's the best shaman I've ever worked with. And I do. My personal experience is I don't think I've worked with a more powerful shaman, and I've worked with many, many, many shamans. He's also the most unexpected shaman in terms of stereotype of what a shaman is. And that's why it's so important that he's on West of What. West of What is obviously a conversation about how we can come back into ceremony with the land, how we can help the birthing of the new earth by transcending what has happened in the past, and how from the place where we are now in modern times in the world, we can move forward towards a better future that is more reverent and respectful of the Great Mother. Gareth. Gareth, the unexpected shaman.
That's fabulous. I love that title. I'm the unexpected shaman. Yeah, well, it was pretty unexpected to me too, to be fair. So, I didn't have a clue that was what was going to happen. So, yeah, I do agree. And yeah, I think it's a very important subject, though, to be honest. Being serious now, is, that we are having an impact in the spiritual community, on the world around us. And I don't think there's a full awareness of that, and also there's an opportunity for us to reclaim so much that was lost at this time, and reintegrate it into our culture, give it a place again, that I don't think there has been in our society for a very long time. We are at the time where we can do something completely new.
I mean, clearly from your accent, everybody can hear that you are thoroughly from England.
Yes.
Essex.
Funnily enough. Yes.
And what part of the reason I wanted to have you on West of What is because, one of the things that I feel happened to England is our traditional shamanic culture was almost completely wiped out, right? Like, yes, there is tiny fragments of Druidism and Wicca and these pagan traditions, but actually it was so obliterated that we, in a way, are having to turn to other ancestral cultures to find out the traditions of how you come back into connection with the land.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, it's more the other way round, actually. Okay. It's the indigenous tribes got told by spirit, you got to sort this lot out. Look at them. They're a mess. Yeah, they've lost everything. They've lost their traditions. They've lost their cycles. They've lost their initiations. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They're running around like little kids, ruining everything. Yeah, sort them out, And so the tribes came down and they gave us these traditions. They gave us this medicine, this is the thing. It wasn't a case of, we didn't know what we were looking for. They knew and they offered it to us. This is what's so beautiful about the whole thing, is that it comes from actually their true generosity, their true kindness, and their true engagement with the planet. They're showing us the way right from the beginning.
Because, that's amazing to hear, because there is a lot nowadays on social media and in social circles about spirituality and cultural appropriation and whether it's appropriate to do shamanism from Peru if you're English and things like that. And I know that many people in my circle are struggling with, like, is it okay to say the word aho? Is it okay? Do you see what I mean? Like they're struggling with not wanting to cause offense to other cultures and yet desperately wanting to come back into ceremony and have the initiations and become the shaman that they are meant to be to usher in the new earth. And so it's really beautiful to hear that this is not something that Western people just came and took from other cultures, but it's actually medicine that was handed to the mess of our culture.
It's true, it is true. They gave so generously, so givingly, and it's not their responsibility to handle that properly afterwards. How could they be responsible for that? That's our responsibility. That's the bit where we can have a discussion, how are we handling the knowledge and the wisdom that we've been given and been offered? How are we taking the medicine that we have been granted, by these tribes, by these cultures in such a generous and open manner, and they've given us so much. And I think in some ways, it's not their fault, that we can't handle it, that we can't, sit with what they've given us comfortably. It's not our fault that we can't do that. We've been impoverished. We're orphans. We're spiritual orphans in the West. We had God taken from us, placed behind shut doors, locked away, told that we weren't part of that, that we had to grovel on the floor, that we had to pay penance, that it was all up at the top and we were down at the bottom. This was the culture that we lived in for hundreds and hundreds of years. We're spiritual orphans in that way. And so, they're our parents, but they can't be responsible for how we treat these things once we've got them.
And would you say that it's actually important that people that understand those shadows, that people that are kind of homegrown in that orphan shadow and therefore are fluent in it and understand it, are serving the medicine and holding the ceremonies and helping people with that shadow? Because presumably somebody that's been in a tribe that has only ever known what it's like to live tribally and have lineage and not presumably they're not as fluent in that shadow as somebody that has worked with that shadow and transcended it.
Yeah. This is where, a lot of things have gone sideways, with this, because you're right. They live in a very particular container, as we live in a very particular container of our experience, and the two are so radically different. The integration between the differences in the cultures is one of the biggest challenges, I think, absolutely, that we face in the spiritual community, because, and it works both ways, very much so. It's not just people coming back from Peru or Brazil or from Africa and then struggling when they get home to integrate everything that they've experienced. It's also the effect that we have on the tribes and how we're changing their culture and the way they live and work. And their whole worldview is being altered, trying to integrate ourselves, our needs, our demands into their culture. When we turn up at their retreats after paying thousands of pounds, we want this and we want that and we want this. Why haven't we got a toilet? Why haven't we got that?
Why haven't you got a toilet?
Yeah, it's true. And it's like we, this is the series of unconscious demands on their culture. that we are making upon them, and that's not even the stuff that we think we know about, let alone, no offense, but the people that decided, oh, wouldn't it be a great idea if we brought Starlink into the rainforest? Oh, won't it be great if we built a heliport, into the village? And then, oh, why don't I build a massive house for myself when I'm here doing ceremony and organising retreats? And then they wonder why things don't work out in the tribe anymore, why things start to go a bit wrong.
Yeah, the ramifications of that with the internet and the Starlink were very bad and very quick. It was amazing to see how quickly the society sort of fell apart.
Yeah, exactly. And I've worked with some of the people that were responsible for some of that.
Sorry, can you you two seem to know about this Starlink story and I don't know about it, and I'm wondering if other people don't know about it, what happened?
So, I only know from one example, which was one of the Huniquin villages. We started hosting a lot of people very regularly, and this was the one that I think was the main one that started it all off. When I was in Brazil in 2013, we met like Ninawa from the Huniquin. They came to the Eagle Condor for the first proper time. They'd been for the first time the year before. And that was when they really first started to appear. And then it became a really big thing, and there was a lot of people bringing a lot of groups over from Europe and the West, to these villages, 4 or 5 days journey up to the villages, and the conditions were incredibly basic, and so there was a lot of people getting ill first of all and struggling and everything like that. So then people started to invest money into the village to improve the conditions, so-called, and then they started building, then there was a project to build them a school, so they started fundraising for that. And it was all this beautiful thing that we're helping the tribe, we're creating this lovely stuff. Yeah. But what actually happened was when they did build the school, they didn't invest in any teachers. So even though the school's been built, they've never held a lesson there. Yeah. And in the meantime, all the rest of the money has gone to the chief and his 3 sons who have all built themselves new houses. Yeah. And the rest of the tribe are now looking at the chief with all of his bling and his Starlink and everything, and they're not happy. And the Starlink, as she said, you know what, when we first went there, all the kids were playing. There was singing and music and everything. And then the last time she went back, which is when she went back to say, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. Everyone was on their phone. The village was silent. Yeah. All the kids, all the parents, all on their phones. And the teenagers are all leaving. They're all going to the city because they've seen what they can get. They don't want to stay in the village. What's the point of staying in this dead-end rainforest, having to deal with all these tourists when we don't really see any of the money or the benefit, And this is what's happening. It's not just in Brazil, it's in lots of places, and not these cultures aren't resilient enough to be able to hold that tide back. And you can't blame them. Living in the rainforest is really, really hard. It's a really tough existence, even if you're really in harmony with it, it's still really hard. We've all been, we know how difficult it was just to be there for a few days in even in a semi-enclosed protected environment. We were still struggling, and so you can't blame them for feeling those ways, and this is affecting people. It's affecting the tribes when they're coming over. Yeah, this is the other side of it. They're coming over now, expecting a lot. They want it. They've got a whole thing to feed now. It's like an industry. And so their shadows are coming out, and it's causing problems in the ceremonies in the UK. Another thing that I've had to deal with so much in the last few years is people that do organising for these people. For these tribes, and they've come and helped them and tried to organise for them, and then they've been misled, or they've been lied to, or they've been treated badly, or accused of things. It's, because of the shadow dynamic that this tribe they're not used to dealing with. They've never experienced these sort of stresses or pressures before. I heard the other day that, someone's getting some medicine from one of the Brazilian tribes and they needed some money so that they could go to the Santo Daime and buy it for them. Because they've got no tradition of making the medicine, but they want to start holding ceremonies so that they can start making some money. Because they see the tribe next door, which has been learned how to hold ceremonies, is now making a fortune. And they're like, well, why can't we do that? Actually, that's a really good idea. Let's go and buy some medicine from the Santo Daime. That's what's happening out there. It's turning into a sort of shamanic Disney World.
It's become a business for the Western world, for sure.
And we've got to we are the ones responsible for that. We are the ones that should be looking at ourselves and going, hang on a second, do we really want that impact? Aren't we doing exactly what the colonialists did, turning up in these places thinking, oh, well, we know better than you. We know that you'll be happier when we give you all of this stuff, when we throw tons of money at you. You're going to be better off for that. Really? Has history shown that's what happens?
And West of What is very much about asking, well, what can we do differently then?
Well, this is what recognize what we've been given. Take ownership of it, because it was given to us, and do it for ourselves.
So become the shaman that hold the ceremony and serve the medicine?
For our people, and then let them serve for their people.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we aren't going to them like broken children, making these demands that we need to be saved and we need to be rescued, but we need to do it in comfort. Do you mind getting air conditioning, please, in the Maloka? We can do that for ourselves. And then when we go to the tribes, we can share, we can celebrate. That's what the Huni Quinn do in their ceremonies, is celebrate. When we went to the Eagle Condor, they had the Native American church and they had the people from the other tribe, and we were all singing together. We have a right to be there, the same as they do. It's not our fault. We were orphaned from our culture, our shamanic culture, our medicine roots. It's not, and the remnants that we have, we can't use them. We've got to create a new tradition from scratch,
or a new earth, I might point out. Also a lot of the traditions aren't necessarily, even if you do have them, they're not necessarily relevant for now. I think a lot of every person around the world is going to have to examine their traditions in the new earth.
Yeah, and I think this is actually where we have to sort of take it back. Yeah, the taboo word, the one that everybody fears. Yeah, New Age shaman. We're New Age shamans. Get over it, guys. Yeah, there's nothing wrong in that. Of course we're a New Age shaman because we're living in a new age. So what's the point of being an old age shaman when it's not relevant to where we are now? The one thing I think we all agree in the spiritual community is the power of the age of Aquarius, changing society, changing consciousness, changing the rules of the game, fundamentally. And we're seeing it in society now. All the rules are changing literally in front of us. We've got no reason not to. Yeah. Absolutely no reason not to make it ours, to reclaim the tradition, recognizing that, the way that the Kero do their ceremony, is very much theirs. The way that the Shipibo do their ceremonies is very much theirs. But the principle underneath it, the actual, if you like, energetic work, is something that isn't, is generic. It's a principle, it's an idea, it's a technique, it's a medicine that you can apply in different ways no matter what where you come from. Yeah, it's a core technique. How they express it is their culture, not the actual technique itself, not the actual principle of what's going on. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree that I don't buy it when someone turns up in ceremony dressed like the Honey Queen, okay, and then they speak with an accent like mine, and I'm like, who are you kidding? You ain't, I'm not going to buy you as a Honey Queen, no matter how authentic you look. And why should you? Why should we? Why do we have to buy our authenticity from them? What's wrong with me being who I am? Yeah, isn't that enough? And if there's something from my culture that I want to use, well, I can use that, and actually, to be fair, we're not getting arsey about people wearing headdresses. They're quite happy. They're like, yeah, go on, I'll sell you a headdress, no problem. So why not, if you really feel that that's going to enhance what you are? Yeah, why not? As long as you don't think, well, I'm buying my authenticity from them. I'm buying my authenticity, my integrity from them. Look, now you can take me for seriously. I don't think it's a problem. If we want to look nice and dress up, if you like, but also I think that, myself personally, I don't like to do that. No. I don't like to dress up particularly at all, unless I really need to. If we're having a big, massive conference of shamans, put your shaman cap on. Then let's bling up, let's go good, or even go wizardy. I'll put my cloak on and my big staff and be all Gandalf, which is actually, an energy that I really get drawn to as well, because that's the energy of the UK, yeah.
Well, the Merlin is where the shaman.
Merlin energy, yeah. And I was going to start a campaign that we appropriate Merlin and say, right, let's, rather than shamanic practitioner, we're a Merlanic practitioner.
Merlanic, I love it.
Yeah, we're Merlins. Merlin was a job. Yeah. Being a Merlin was a job. In the Mabinogion, it talks about several different people that were Merlins. Yeah. So if you like, and I really believe, if you look at what they do or what they did, they were shamans. They did shaman stuff. They shape-shifted, they sang healing songs. Yeah, they spoke to the spirits of the land. They communicated with the fairy realm. It was all there, So if you like, from what I've found, that's the closest that we've got, even though it's the Welsh culture. Its roots were in the islands that we live in, so I'd love to see, forget about the issue with being a shaman or not. Let's just call ourselves Merlins then. There you are, end of discussion, But even then, and this is the thing we've just got to accept with that word, is even then, if we did all call ourselves Merlins, for example, and someone said, oh, what's a Merlin? You say, oh, well, it's a bit like a shaman. Yeah. You'd still need that word because it's become a culturally accepted archetype that pretty much everybody in the world now recognizes. If you say the word shaman, they go, oh, yeah,
I'd quite like to...
We just have to accept that.
I'd quite like to ask you what a shaman is, because, we've just been talking about medicine. For me, just because somebody's going through the processes of a learned tradition doesn't mean that they're actually listening to the medicine and following the guidance. And to me, it's not actually shamanism or Merlinism or magic unless you're in divine conversation with the medicine. Does that make sense? It's like, and that's just my view, because I was grown in the world of channeling, maybe, which is obviously part of shamanism. But to me, it's like, this stuff isn't necessarily things that are just passed on. It also requires a level of presence.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question directly, I have to say I like the definition given by Nicholas Breezewood, bless him, and he defined it very, very simply, and I was like, oh, yeah, spot on. A shaman, okay, speaks to the spirit world, communicates with the spirit world. Yeah. A shaman holds ceremonies, for healing, for prayer, or for other purposes. Yeah. And a shaman delivers messages and healing for people. Yeah. That's it. Those three things. So if you talk to the spirits, if you hold ceremonies and healing for people, spaces for people to heal or pray, and if you do healings and help people, in some way or another, with the guidance of spirits, you're a shaman. That's what shamans do.
That's a pretty good explanation, I think. And just on that, where is your lineage of shamanism based on, if any at all? And did you have a particular teacher that taught you?
Yes. So I've been on a journey with this one, because when I started the medicine wheel and my shamanic training, I didn't know anything. Okay. So I was completely green, had no idea about all of it. So I took everything that I received on the medicine wheel pretty much on face value. Bought into, to be fair, I bought into the story, the Alberto Villoldo, Four Winds Institute idea that they took everything and, the Kero were all amazing and everything was wonderful and it's all direct and everything. And it's not that simple. The Alberto Villoldo wheel is a very, very much changed, adapted series of learnings that have been made convenient and acceptable to the West. Can
you explain in what way they've been made for the West?
Okay, this is big. This is going to take a little while to talk about. Okay, so when Alberto Villoldo and Lee Hilfiger and the other people there, Kay and Leo Rutherford, saw the Kero in the 70s, they met them down in Cusco for the first time properly. Yeah, they started to work with them and they received the first of the Karpais, the direct initiation rites of the Kero. Yeah, now those rites, those initiations, are directly relating to their sacred landscape. Which is the 13 Apus of the Sacred Valley. Literally, it's like connecting them directly to their land. They are specific for their culture. Alberto Villoldo was very, very clever. You've got to give him credit for this. He recognized the core transmissions of what they were giving people, but he also recognized that the Kero don't have any format for actually transmitting the knowledge that represents, the mindset and the ideas and the concepts that it represented, because it's embedded in their culture. They learn it as they grow up on their mum's knees. So they have no way of teaching it to an adult that doesn't understand, and their rights don't explain it. So he created using Western psychotherapy techniques and his other knowledge, a hybrid transmission network. So he took the core energies, the core knowledge of the Kero, but turned it into a framework that Western people could understand. He recognized that we have to unlearn huge amounts of negative programming in order to be able to understand the basic concepts that the Kero took for granted, so that's what it did. And then it is controversial. A lot of people in the shamanic community do raise eyebrows about him, because his very slick marketing and, he became globally renowned and he has made a lot of money.
He capitalized shamanism.
He most definitely did, and even though you can look at that and go, well, look how much he's an industrial juggernaut now, and the amount of money that he charges for his training, I have to say, I do believe isn't necessarily the best value for money, because the core transmissions are the core transmissions. They're energetic. They go from person to person. It doesn't matter who you are. Yeah, if you are in integrity and in truth and in trust and love with those transmissions, you can transmit them. Yeah, you don't need to be special and have best-selling books to do that. This is where we have to reclaim authenticity rather than try buying into it. And it's, what, there is nothing wrong with the fact that my lineage came from that. I have also been lucky enough to go to the Cairo directly. I've received their blessings, which was very beautiful, because I was very lucky to be honoured with that. But it doesn't matter. It makes no difference, okay, who is wherever they are that gives me permission to be a shaman. I was never given permission to be a shaman. Yeah, I actually ended up having a big falling out with my teacher at the end of my training. And she deliberately said, no, I don't want, which was her choice. And I was like, you know what? Okay, thank you very much. But I don't need your permission. Yeah. Because this isn't about you. This is about me. This is about my relationship with spirit. This is about my connection in my heart to the truth. And it's the truth that I believe in. It's the truth that I love. And that truth is something that's mine. It's my frequency, my vibration. This is the other thing I've learned in shamanism, is that we are all unique. There are no two shamans the same. It doesn't matter, where you come from, what you are, or what your culture is. You're not the same as any other shaman. You're unique. Even if you both come from the same village and had the same teachers, and followed the same initiations at the same times, you'd still be unique. Nobody can be a copy or a replica of you. So don't worry about the authenticity. Doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. And this is the one thing I really do believe in, and I've found that has helped me in my shamanic practice so incredibly strongly. Is the shamanism doesn't come from here. It doesn't come from the look. It doesn't come from my certificates, or my stories that I can tell of how I grew up in the rainforest. It comes from here in my heart. It's from here that the spirits talk to me. It's from here the guidance is given, and being a shaman is an expression of self, true self. And I believe in the new age, and this is radical, and this is where, maybe I do cause some controversy. I believe everybody can be a shaman.
I agree with you.
I believe everybody can be a shaman. Everyone has this capacity. Everybody has the capacity to do this. Everyone's got the heart, the channel, the voice, the intention, if they want to.
And part of the reason West of What is being created is because I believe that for the new earth to physically manifest, the new earth is literal, and it means new earth. And in order for the earth and the records and the codes and the memories and the vibrations in the current soils of this planet to be reborn, we need so many shaman to do those ceremonies for all different lands. And, it's really interesting to me that you say you're trained, like the origin of the Huniquin's teachings comes from the land. It's like, for me, how I see the bridge to the new earth is more and more people becoming shaman of the land that they are on, or the lands they are traveling to.
Yeah. And it's all you need to do is, and it's there, it's available, everywhere, even in the cities, all you need to do is open your eyes, your mind to it. And the spirits are there. The shamanic energy is there. They are. Even in the UK, we did a right job on our nature. We clobbered it down to nothing. We've literally ground it into the dirt, and it hardly
grass lawns.
Yeah. But it's still here. The voices are still here. The stone people under the ground, the great-grandmothers and grandfathers of the rocks, they still remember. You go to the peaks, you go to the hills, the woods, their voices are still there. Herne still walks through the forest. The goddess still sings in the rivers The nymphs still shine in the sunshine. It's there. Magic is everywhere. Magic is, that's our gift. We give that to the land. Yeah. One of the things that I've recently started to recognize is that, a lot of shamanism is actually just lending ourselves to the land, to the things that we work with, the tools, the crystals, all of these things. We lend ourselves to them. Yeah. We lend our heart, our mind, our voice, our brain, if you like, to them. Our capacity to think and conceive. We share that with the trees, with the lake, with the mountain. Yeah. And they share themselves back with us. Yeah. Because mountains don't have a brain. Mountains can't speak. They don't have a voice, but we do. We can lend that to them and they can use it, and then they can lend their strength to us and we can share that, and this is what the shamans do. This is how the shamans do it. I recognize now. We lend ourselves to the land. We share ourselves with it and it shares itself with us in love and trust. And there is the great power that I've seen shamans perform impossible things, control the weather, create healing miracles in front of my eyes, change people's lives, and it's because they share themselves so deeply and openly with the earth, that all of the power of the earth, all of the mystery and the magic of the earth is theirs to command, And the journey to get to that is a personal one. No one can take it for you, And now we have enough information, enough knowledge here in the West, we can guide ourselves there.
Or you really ask the land guide. I mean, my experience is if you want to work with land wants to work with you. But as soon as you commit to working with a land, that land starts working with you, and you are going to have to deal with whatever the land wants to purge from you.
Yeah.
Or, you mentioned mountains lending you their strength. My experience of working with the Apu is they will lend you their strength, but first they're going to make sure you're strong enough to handle it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, they don't want to burn out the shamans, do they? But also you're also right in that when you connect to the land, the message that you get when you lend yourself to the land, sometimes actually it's not happy. I mean, this is one of the, issues that I have here living where we do at the moment. We live in Norfolk. We're very blessed to live in the middle of nowhere in the countryside, surrounded, however, by arable farming. And what they do to this land that we live around it's like I feel myself being ploughed, like the blades cutting my heart, ripping me open, killing the land again and again and again. I mean, they spray and they chop and they cut and they hack and they grind and they churn. It's awful. The land is in pain, and when I open myself to that here, that's what I get, and it is hard, to be honest, and it's made me angry. It's made me a lot more militant, because I see a lack of reverence, a lack of respect, a complete absence of the concept that the land could be a sacred living thing, a thing that could respond to us, that could love us if we let it. But they don't. They grind it down. They chop it. It's horrible.
And would you say, and in England we did used to have, to be fair, ceremonies that help. So we have chopped and ground that land for many, many years in England, like hundreds, thousands of years, right? We've been farming. But when I think of historical England, what we also used to do was ceremony. We would do ceremony at the turning of the seasons, at the we would also take the time to be in reverence and celebration at Mabon and Samhain and Imbolc, and we would welcome in the new season. We would give thanks. We would celebrate. We would align. We would resonate with what the land was doing.
We still do. Yeah, we still do, but we don't understand what we're doing. Okay, yeah. At this time of year, moving into May, Morris dancers across this land are going to be putting bells on, decorating sticks, and dancing in sacred geometric forms. Yeah. Without having a clue of what they're doing, they are creating geomagnetic energy lines in these central points, yeah, reaffirming the connection to the land. This is where our tradition exists now. Yeah, in the harvest fairs that the church runs. Yeah, that was the old celebration, of Lukastan. Our pagan traditions, our old shamanic connection exists. It's just been completely disconnected from its original source and its original truth.
And its original reason, the original reason why it happened.
Well, that was to take all of the power away from the people and put it into the church so that the church could run things and have lots of power and money and continue to abuse boys.
And based on what you're saying about shamanism and it being the ability to borrow power from the land, the best way to disempower a people is to disconnect them from their land.
Yeah. Also, though, to be fair, the ancient pagan cultures of England were a bit sacrificey. Yeah. There was a lot of sacrificiness around it, and actually this is the other thing about the ancient shamanic cultures, it was an awful lot of sacrifice. Yeah.
Lots.
Is that sacrifice because they could feel, and I'm just putting this out there, I'm not saying in New Age shamanism we need to do it, although please, women, if you're not offering your blood, come on, that's easily given. But if you're connected to the land and you can feel the pain of the chopping and the farming that you're doing in order to survive, then to me, sacrifice is like a natural thing of like, okay, I'm doing this to you, but look what I'm going to give to you.
It's more the other way round, really. It was more about the people themselves. That's why they were sacrificing, is because of what the people were going through. Remember, you're living in a time before modern medicine, before technology in the way that we imagine it, before law and order was established in the way that we could recognize. It was dangerous. It was a dangerous life, a frightening life. It was life or death. If the crops didn't grow, your tribe was screwed. Yeah. They were going to starve to death. So in those circumstances, one person being sacrificed for the sake of everybody to guarantee this lot all live, that seems like a fair trade-off, doesn't it? It was because of the urgency of the need at the time, that actually the thought of giving someone's life to the land to ensure the safety of the tribe was actually seemed fair enough, I think where that, but we saw the extreme of that, in like the Inca Empire when it got to the height of the killy stuff. They were slaughtering hundreds of thousands of people. Hundreds of thousands of people on an industrial scale. Yeah. That's the extreme of that blood sacrifice culture. That's why it came to an end. That's why it needed to be removed. I don't see that the end of the shamanic cultures in the Western world was actually a bad thing. Yeah. Because they were bloodthirsty. They were soaked in the sacrifice ideal. And it had been left to run, it would have gone the way of the Inca Empire. Yeah. And you would have ended up with a big pile of skeletons of hundreds of thousands of people being killed all the time. You know, it had to be wiped out. It had to be forgotten so that we could start a new tradition.
But is that imprint not still in? And I don't want to go to rabbit hole here.
Well, yeah, but I think
There's
that
still
is,
not mass bodies.
that's expressed by the military culture that we hold in our society now. That energy has been taken by them. You know, we don't need to worry about that.
For you to eat, basically.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like that still exists. And maybe that's something at this stage where we're considering the new earth, that as visionaries of the new earth, we need to think of a different way for offerings to be made.
Well, I think this is where we can look at the Kero. The Kero are in my view, I've got a lot of answers to these problems because they don't sacrifice, they gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they gift their offerings. They're given, yeah, in thanks.
That sounds better.
It's not a sacrifice in terms of, oh God, please help us, please save us. Take this, and then you can give us what we need to survive. They give in love. We offer this gift to you because you are beautiful and we are in love. You know, it's the irony, that reciprocity. We're in a circle of love. There's no need for sacrifice. We share with gifting each other's, you know, with love, and they gift constantly. That's what they do. You know, when, you know, we see the Kero doing dispatchos, where we often misinterpret and say, oh, they're praying, they're making a prayer. Yeah, as if they're demanding something, as if they're, you know, I'm giving you this, give me back. You know, that's not how it works. They don't have to ask for anything back. They know it's already been given. They're already in the Aini. They're already living the gift. All they have to do is just be grateful and share that gift back. You know, and that's, you know, where I believe that's where we can be. That's where we can be, you know, beyond that idea of sacrifice. You know, recognizing we already have the gift, and we have everything. Like, God, we're so blessed.
It reminds me of a piece of guidance I had that is like, you know, even the way we do ceremony as Westerners, we tend to be quite transactional, or the way we channel, we tend to be like, I want to do this healing to get this. When actually, one of the things my guys were recently teaching about was that, like, the reason to do ceremony, or the reason to be in relationship, is for the sake of relationship. It's for the sake of ceremony rather than to gain anything from it. You know, it's because the ceremony is the beautiful thing to be doing. It's because being around the fire is just brilliant, you know, as opposed to because you want to get something from it, you know. And that's a very different way of intending and approaching and existing in the spiritual ceremonial world.
Yeah, I think you have got something there, my dear. Most definitely. You know, that it's, you know, and it's true, you know, it's like when we do our stuff, you know, it's those moments around the fire that you remember. Mm-hmm. You know, when someone was singing a song or playing guitar, or just a conversation you had with somebody about their sister's aunt, whatever it was, you know, it's those moments that are precious. It's that moment that is definitely the thing that in our retreats the people cherish the most. Those simple moments where we're not doing the training, we're not on doing a big thing, we're just being. We're just being in the space, you know, and it's all sacred space when we do our work. We open the space at the start and we don't shut it till we close. So everything that's going on throughout the whole time is in sacred space, but there isn't necessarily the agenda, as you say, of we're going to get something out of it. We're just going to be here, you know, and I think you know, that's in there is the true authenticity of self as well. because you can be just who you are. And, you know, when there isn't an agenda, there's nothing to gain out of it other than just to be there. You know, there's nothing to lose, is there?
I mean, that bit of guidance came through the fact that I realized in my own Western orphan consciousness that my channeling had become a bit like a Deliveroo order. Do you know what I mean? And I stopped. Like, it's like I'd got so used to channeling and like I'd just become so transactional. Like, guys, what do you want me to do next? And I'd stopped being in relationship. You know, I'd stopped being in the wonder. And I was like, it was, you know, it really made me, when I had that realization, I was like, gosh, even once you've learned all the knowledge, not that there's always more to learn, but even when you've been on this path for years, you can still slip in to that like transactional Western capitalist way of being just because it's so embedded in us, you know, to yeah, go Deliveroo. You know?
Oh yes, yeah, no, indeed, you know, and I think if it's, I know, thank you for this conversation to remind me of that simplicity, you know. You know, the one thing I think I get from the spirits is that, you know, just be human, just be the human you are, just that's enough. You know, the other stuff's great, but just be you. You know, that's what you are. You know, I tried my best. I think if we could all do that, it'd be great.
There's actually a quote I like. It's very simple, and it's just be yourself. Everyone else is taken. And I think that's like the perfect analogy for that. And that's always the message that I get as well. It's just we always try so hard, or we try so hard on ourselves, especially as we go down the rabbit hole of spirituality, because there's so many layers. But, you know, the reminder is just be yourself, just be human. That's why you're here. You know, you're here to have the human experience. So just don't forget that. And, you know, just always make sure you're having fun and there's joy in your life.
Exactly. You know, and, you know, yeah, you know, and in that, it's like you can look forward to the next chapter, you know, no matter what's going on. We've always got the opportunity to grow and to flourish in life if we want to take that chance.
Gareth, thank you so much for coming on to West of What. As a closing question, can I just ask you, what's the most simple thing someone can do if they want to be more shamanic in their lives?
See it around you. Don't see it as something that's far away in the rainforest or in some other place. If only you could be there, it would be there. Yeah. See it where you are. See it right now on your table, in your coffee cup, a house plant. Give it a water. You know, see it there. See the spirit there. See the truth there. Just as much as it would be if you were on the top of Machu Picchu. Yeah, or at the Great Pyramids of Giza, or, you know, climbing, you know, Mount Shasta. See it with you now in everything that's around you. See the presence of spirit in everything. And it can see that in you. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. This has deeply touched my heart, this conversation, and I hope many, many people hear it, because I feel like it has many important messages for the West. So much love.
Lots of love. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a real genuine pleasure and an honor and a privilege always to speak with you.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Always an honor to share space with you, Gareth. You're amazing, and thank you for your incredible work. It's so felt and so needed. If today's episode touched your heart and you want to come into greater relationship with Mother Earth, visit landtantra.com and get involved. Your truth is part of this conversation, and we would love you to reach out on socials and let us know how it landed. And if it really inspired you, we hope you share it with others. Let's add more wow to our world.